Hey folks, Gary here. I hope you're having a really good Tuesday. Hey, we've been looking at the life of Moses lately, and first we looked at his birth and being adopted by one of Pharaoh's daughters. Moses grows up, he becomes a young man, and Moses decides to take things into his own hands, and he's going to avenge the Hebrews, and he ends up killing an Egyptian. Because of that, he's got to run for his life, and he flees Egypt, has to leave it all behind, and he goes into the desert of Midian. And what ends up happening is while he's in that desert, he gets taken into a family, ends up marrying one of the daughters, and we pick it up in chapter 3, and it says this. One day Moses was tending the flock of his father Jethro, so he's become a shepherd, the priest of Midian. He led the flock into the wilderness, far into the wilderness, and came to Sinai, the mountain of God. There an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the middle of a bush. Moses stared in amazement. Though the bush was engulfed in flames, it did not burn up. This is amazing, Moses said to himself. Why isn't that bush burning up? I must go see it. When the Lord saw Moses coming to take a closer look, God called to him from the middle of the bush, Moses, Moses. Here I am, Moses replied. Do not come any closer, the Lord warned. Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. When Moses heard this, he covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. So Moses encounters God. How long did this take? Well, most scholars say it took 40 years. 40 years from when he killed the Egyptian and went into hiding to this point now. 40 years in the desert. Why did it take 40 years? Well, a lot of guys write and say, well, because Moses needed to know every inch of that desert. So when the Exodus happens and he takes the children of God, the Hebrews, across the wilderness to Israel, to the promised land, he will know every place, every nook and cranny. And there's some, there's something to that for sure, right? Moses needed to know all the area for sure. But I don't know if it would take him 40 years to do that. I'm thinking the 40 years had another purpose too. Moses was full of pride beforehand. He was the one going to avenge the Hebrews. He was the one who's going to take control. He was the one who's going to make wrongs right and avenge and all that kind of stuff. He needed to lose all that. All that pride had to be taken away. And God was stripping that pride away over those 40 years. Why? So that Moses could be used by God later on, right? Here's the thing. You can feel good about yourself. I'm not saying you can't do that. But when pride gets in the way, you're not very useful anymore. And so it took 40 years for God to take that pride out of Moses so that Moses could be useful to God at that point in time. What's the takeaway for us in this? Don't let it take 40 years, right? Understand it's God who does the work. It's God who makes things happen. And we come to God and say, Lord, your will be done, right? Like, I want you to use me, right? Flow through me, direct me, guide me, use me. But I understand that it's God who makes it happen. It's God who gets all the glory.